For chairman, please.
I'd like to nominate Councillor Judy Butt, please.
Do I have a seconder?
I'm quite happy to second that.
Thank you very much, councillors. So, as duly appointed chair, I will now continue with the meeting. Could I please ask our clerk, Michelle Cutler, to deal with our housekeeping?
Good morning, yes. Please know that this meeting of the Licensing Subcommittee, up to the exclusion of the press and public, is being recorded by the Council for live broadcast and will be published on the Council website for a minimum of 6 months. In order to ensure the meeting is managed effectively, please could everyone present follow these ground rules for speaking. Only speak when invited to do so by the chairman. State your name before you speak if you have not been introduced by name. Please ensure that you unmute yourself and always turn on the video function before speaking. Mute your microphone when you are not talking. After each party has made their representation to the chairman, the chairman will ask each person in turn if they have any questions or comments. However, if at any point you would like to speak again, please use the raise your hand function at the top right of the screen. Please do not use the messaging panel. Once you have finished, please remember to lower your hand. Finally, please ensure background noise is kept to a minimum and mobile phones and other devices are turned off or switched to silent for the duration of the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Michelle. Now we have, do we have any apologies?
No apologies received, Chair.
Thank you very much. Do we have any declarations of interest? Just to point out to members, the declarations of interest are as under page 2 of the agenda, the flow chart. So are there any declarations of interest? Councillor Farr? Councillor Farr, any declarations of interest?
No declaration of interest.
Councillor Burton?
No, none at all.
Thank you very much. The protocol for public speaking, it's a revised protocol and it has been circulated with the agenda sheet at agenda item 4. So now I will ask each participant to introduce themselves and to state their role. Firstly, my name is Councillor Mrs. Judy Butt. I'm the chairman of the Licensing Committee and I'm also chairman of this subcommittee. And my ward is Creekmore, Hilborn and Waterloo. Councillor Burton?
Hello, I'm Councillor Richard Burton. Bearwood and Merley is my ward and I'm a member of the Licensing Subcommittee.
Thank you. Councillor Farr?
Hello, I'm Councillor Farr, member of the Licensing Subcommittee and ward member. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We have a reserve member, Councillor David Kelsey. Councillor Kelsey, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, Chair. Councillor Dave Kelsey, I'm the board member for this licensing committee and I represent Eastcliff and Springbourne ward. I will not be taking part in this meeting this morning as we have a full complement of people, but I will stay on just to observe over points. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Kelsey. Linda Cole.
The legal advisor for the subcommittee today.
Thank you, Linda. Michelle Cutler.
Good morning, I'm Michelle Cutler. I'm the clerk to the Licensing Subcommittee this morning.
Thank you, Michelle. Nananka Randall.
Good morning, Nananka Randall. I'm the licensing manager for BCP Council. Thank you.
Thank you, Nananka. Mr. Philip Day.
Good morning, Chair. My name is Philip Day from Lacey Solicitors. I'm here to represent the applicants.
Thank you very much. And Mr. Van Hubble. You're on mute, Mr. Hubble.
Good morning, my name is Van Hubble and I am one of the directors of Roofside Catering Limited.
Thank you very much. We have Ward Councillor, Councillor Jane Kelly.
Good morning, Councillor Jane Kelly. My ward is Boscombe West, where the kiosks in question during the panel meeting lie.
Thank you, Councillor. And Councillor Anne Filer.
Yes, good morning. I represent Eastcliff and Springbourne ward, which is immediately adjacent to this kiosk.
Thank you very much, Councillor Filer. Could I ask you to put your video on when you're talking to us? Thank you, so we can see you. Thank you, it's kind of you. And Mr. Noel Oliver, Contracts and Commercial Manager.
Good morning, Chair. Yes, I'm Noel Oliver, the Contract and Commercial Manager with BCP Council. To look after the contract at recycling.
Okay. No, that wasn't terribly clear. Are you in a windy position, or is that just your background? Because your mic is, we're not hearing you very clearly.
I'll come a little bit closer. Does that help?
That's a little better. We'll need to speak very close to the microphone. Are you actually outside?
I'm in my office.
Oh, you're in your office.
Apologies
You look like yes. Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. We also have Democratic Services officers present who are dealing with our technical support, but they won't be taking any part of the meeting. So we'll carry on now to the application. An application has been received for a new premises licence for the premises known as Reefside Kiosks, which is Boscombe Pier, BH51BN. And this matter has been brought before the Licensing Subcommittee for determination. Before I run through the procedure, may I check that, firstly, all persons who've given notice of their intention to speak have been identified. If anybody is not content, can you raise a hand? Councillor Filer? Oh, right, okay. And any person who would like to withdraw a representation or wishes not to speak has been identified. Is there anybody? No? Okay then. So if there are no comments, I will take this as correct. I will now explain the proposed procedure and order of speaking for our hearing. So to commence, the licensing officer will present the report. That's Tanya Jardim. Oh, Tanya, did I not invite you?
No.
Tanya,
okay.
My deepest apologies.
Okay, no problem.
Would you like to introduce yourself? And my apologies.
I'm Tanya Jardim. I'm the licensing officer that was dealing with this application.
And very key to our hearing. My apologies, Tanya.
Okay.
The applicant will then make their application. That's Mr. Day. Then questions of the applicant from members of the committee and officers on points of fact can be asked. Then the responsible authorities and other persons will make their representations. That will be Noel Oliver and our ward councillors. And questions of responsible authorities, other persons will then ensue with members going first and officers on points of fact. Everybody will be given the opportunity to sum up, and the party who spoke last will go first. So the order of play will be Noel Oliver, our councillors, and then Mr. Philip Day, and then lastly Tanya Jardim. We'll then conclude the hearing. The subcommittee will debate in private with our legal advisor and our clerk present. Notification of the subcommittee's decision will be given within a period of 5 working days, beginning with the day of the last day on which the hearing was held in accordance with the regulations, which is today. The notification of decision will include information about the right of appeal as appropriate. So I will now ask all parties to confirm agreement on the proposed procedure or to make representations that they do not agree. So starting with you, Tanya, are you in agreement? Can I just have a hand if you are? I think that's probably the easiest thing to do. Thank you. Nananka Randall. Thank you, Nananka. Mr. Day. And Mr. Hubble. Thank you, Mr. Hubble. And do we have Councillor Jane Kelly? Thank you, Councillor Kelly. And Councillor Anne Filer. Thank you, Councillor Filer. And Noel Oliver. Are you so content you are? Thank you very much. So finally, everyone, may I please remind all parties speaking not to repeat the information which they've already given in writing, but to expand on their written representations. All questions are to be asked through the chairman, please, and there'll be no cross-examination of parties. So if everybody is content, I will now ask the licensing officer to present the report. Thank you, Tanya, if you'd like to present your report.
Okay, thank you, Chair. Consider whether to grant a premises licence at Kiosk 1 and 2, Boscombe Pier, Undercliff Drive. Application was submitted by Mr. Philip Day of Lacey's on behalf of Reeside Catering Limited on the 29th of July 2020. The application made is for the supply of alcohol on and off the premise Monday to Sunday, 1000 to 1900 hours. The licensing office received 6 representations against the application from other persons based on the 4 licensing objectives. namely the prevention of crime and disorder, the prevention of public nuisance, public safety, and the protection of children from harm. We received no further representations from any of the responsible authorities. Members are asked to consider whether to grant this application as applied for, refuse the application, or grant the application subject to conditions being added. Should the licence be granted and the applicants fail to operate in accordance with their licence and any conditions attached to it, they will be aware that any responsible authorities or other persons may request a review of the licence at any time. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tanya. Are there any questions for Tanya from our subcommittee members, Councillor Farr or Councillor Burton? I take it there aren't. Are there any questions from officers on points of fact? No? Right, thank you very much for that. So we'll now ask, okay, I've just had a message come up. Sorry, ladies and gentlemen. 2 moments. Thank you. Okay, so we'll now move on then to the applicant. If you would like to make your application on behalf of the applicant, Mr. Philip Day, if you'd like to make the application, please.
Thank you, Chair. Can I just have one little point of clarification before we go any further? The 2 ward councillors, are they simply representing themselves, or are they also representing the individuals who have made representations but who are not actually at the hearing?
Ms. Cole, we've already had this conversation. Would you like to advise Mr. Day, please?
Of course, Chair. I understand that Councillor Kelly is representing those that have made representations, or at least 2 of them, and Councillor Filer is speaking on behalf of herself as another person, just because she represents an area that's just adjacent to the application. But some of the information she is saying is from information she's been told by her own constituents.
Thank you, that's very helpful. I hope you've all had an opportunity to read the document that I circulated, or was circulated.
Mr. Day, sorry, Mr. Day, are you content with that? Are you now moving into your application?
Oh, yes, sorry, there was just a point of clarification. Thank you, Mrs. Cole, for clarifying.
Thank you very much. Right, if you'd like to move to your application. Thank you, Mr. Day.
I hope you've all seen the document that was circulated yesterday, which outlines the position that we adopt. I do apologise for a couple of typos in it. Premises are actually owned by the council and are leased to the applicants and have been for many years. They've been there a long time and operated successfully without any complaints or incidents, etc. The application is a slightly unusual one because it's as said in the summary, it's an application of both an on and off licence, but it is not intended that any alcohol be consumed within any actual building. The reason that it's couched as an on licence is that if you look at the plan, then part of the external area that is within the lease, and you can see it in the photograph at the top of the representation that I made. It's not actually laid out to tables and chairs in that photograph. They weren't out on the day I went down there and took it. But that is on the premises, even though it's not inside the premises, etc. I've outlined the legal position. There is a presumption here in favour of grant. It's not within a cumulative impact policy or anything like that. You should take your lead on matters of crime and disorder, in particular from the police, who raised no objection to this application. There was an informal consultation with them before the application was submitted, and they were content with it as it was. Clearly, as I'm sure you're aware, any decision you make must be supported by evidence, particularly with regard to issues of crime and disorder. You mustn't speculate about what will happen in the future, bearing in mind that if there is a problem, you have the right to review the licence, and that might lead to any number of consequences ranging from no action at all through to a revocation of the licence. And insofar as there is any issue of need or demand or lack of need or demand, that is an irrelevant consideration. As far as the objections themselves are concerned, a lot of them turn on what's been happening, particularly this summer. And indeed, if one believes what one reads in the Daily Echo, and why should one not, it's been happening very recently, late at night or into the late evening and into the night, it would appear that there are groups, crowds possibly of young people predominantly gathering and having what's been described as a rave in or around or under the pier. My understanding of it is that that all tends to start at about 9 o'clock at night and goes on until 1, 2 o'clock in the morning. That's long after these premises are closed in any event, and the application seeks the supply of alcohol until 7 p.m. Concern has been expressed about the use of glass, cans, bottles, whatever, causing issues of public nuisance, litter and the like. And that is something that I and Mr. Hubble have been discussing over the last 24 hours, because we do understand the concern that is raised. The application as it stands has a number of conditions on it, which I'm sure you can see, but I'll refer you to them in this way. The first one is that no beer, lager or cider of strength greater than 5.5% ABV should be stocked or sold. That's, I hesitate to use the word standard condition, but it's something that the police usually look for, and we're certainly content to agree that. And then it goes on to say that no bottles of spirits should be sold for consumption either on or off the premises, but we can still sell spirits as an ingredient in a mixed drink such as Pimm's or gin and tonic. And then all alcoholic drinks served for consumption within the licensed area, in other words, the external areas shown on the plan, should be decanted into non-glass drinking vessels. And then, importantly, this, all alcoholic drinks sold for consumption off the premises will be supplied in sealed containers, and no more than 2 litres beer, lager or cider should be sold in a single transaction. Now, we've thought about that, and we have thought that actually there is a better way of addressing all of the concerns that have been raised about such things as littering and so on and so forth. I can let you have this in writing, but and I'll take this fairly slowly. What we're suggesting that you do, and it is within your power to change and add conditions as offered, is this. The first part of it about no beer, lager or cider of a strength greater than 5.5% ABV should be stocked, sold or supplied to customers shall remain, except that I've included the word supplied. And then secondly, all alcoholic drinks, whether they be sold for consumption on or off the premises, shall be decanted into a biodegradable container, and no glass nor plastic bottles, tins or cans shall be sold or supplied to customers. So it may well be that the alcohol is in a tin, is in a bottle or whatever, but it has to be decanted, and it has to be decanted into a biodegradable container before it's allowed to effectively leave the staff, not just leave the customer. So it doesn't matter whether you're sitting at one of the tables that are outside during the high season, weather permitting, then it would come to you in one of these biodegradable containers. If you want to walk onto the pier, if you want to walk down onto the beach, you'll still get it in a biodegradable container. To go on, that no spirit should be sold. Forget the no spirits in bottles. No spirit should be sold full stop unless it's used as an ingredient in a cocktail or other mixed drink, and then it would still have to be poured into one of these biodegradable containers. And then finally, with regard to this, that no single customer should be allowed to purchase more than the equivalent of 8 units of alcohol at any one time. And for this purpose, a half pint of beer, half pint of beer, lager or cider, not wine, a single measure of spirits within a cocktail or other mixture, or a measure of wine not exceed 75 millilitres should be regarded as 1 unit. So if I and my wife go down to Boscombe Pier with another couple, then without wishing to sound sexist, I can buy 2 pints of beer or 2 pints of lager. I can buy 2 medium-sized glasses of wine or 2 large gin and tonics, and that would be within the limit, but I couldn't go there and buy 6 pints or whatever and carry them on a tray down to the beach if there's a crowd of my pals or anything like that there. It is intended to provide litter bins, and a condition was offered, it was suggested during the pre-application informal consultation that we put prominent signage up asking people to use the litter bins and matters like that. We think that that would answer any concerns that people might have about bottles and cans and everything else. And it would not be a case, even within a shop, that anybody could walk in and select half a dozen cans of beer or anything like that. They would be kept secure. And if you wanted a beer, if you wanted a glass of wine, if you wanted a gin and tonic or a Pimm's or whatever, it will get poured for you into one of these biodegradable containers, and that is how you would be served with it. We think that that would go a very long way towards answering a number of the concerns that have been expressed. In addition, full CCTV coverage, there is limited CCTV coverage in that locality, but full CCTV coverage of the licensed area would be provided, and that would further, we hope, deter antisocial behaviour in the immediate locality, and it would clearly assist the police or other enforcement authorities if there was a problem, even if the problem wasn't actually directly associated with the premises. The CCTV would be available. The applicants have for a number of years now operated in a not dissimilar situation, the other end of the beach at Chineside. They have there a somewhat bigger establishment that operates as a restaurant, but also on and off licensed, and people there can use these biodegradable containers, take drinks onto the beach. There hasn't been any issue there at all. The applicants are experienced operators, and more to the point, they are experienced in this particular sort of environment. The intention is not to bulk sell cheap alcohol that you can buy in a supermarket or anything like that. The price of a pint of beer would be the equivalent of at least £5. So it is not somewhere where anybody, unless they're extremely wealthy, is going to be even tempted to go and binge drink or anything like that. The object of the exercise is to be able to, frankly, cater people like me. If I wander down to Boscombe Pier, it would be nice to be able to sit there and look out over the sea and enjoy a pint of beer or something like that, rather than being restricted to either bringing my own from one of the supermarkets or the off licenses that are in Boscombe. It is a lovely spot, especially when the sun shines. This will be a small, low-scale operation to simply complement the existing offering that's there. It will be, with the greatest of respect, pretty harmless. And if it turns out that we're wrong and it's not harmless and it does cause a problem, then in those circumstances, as you know, you have the right to review the license. So that is the application. I invite you to grant it in terms of the activities sought, i.e. sale of alcohol on and off the premises, between the hours that are sought, safe in the knowledge that if you were to grant this license today, they're not going to start using it until the beginning of the season next year. You certainly won't be able to go down there on Boxing Day and have a drink. It's simply not going to be worth their while. And I do ask you to give serious thought to amending the proposed conditions alcohol can be sold into the wording that I've suggested, which in effect says no tins, no bottles, no cans, everything decanted, everything must be decanted into a biodegradable container and a limit of 8 units of alcohol per customer at any one time, an unit being half pint of beer, single measure of spirit, or a glass of wine, or a biodegradable receptacle of wine, not exceeding 175 millilitres, which is your standard medium measure. That's the application. Unless you have any further questions, I'm in danger of repeating what's already been reduced to writing or is in the application, or what I've already said to you this morning. So thank you very much for your attention. Madam Chair, I think you're muted. I can see your lips moving, but I can't hear you.
Thank you, Mr. Day, bless you. Thank you very much for that expansive application. Do we have any questions for Mr. Day? Councillor Farr. Councillor Farr, any questions?
Thank you, Chair. Sorry, I was muted there for a moment. Just take myself off mute. Yeah, I'd just like a bit of sort of clarification. It may be sort of 2 questions in one. How many staff will be employed at any one, and how will the policy be enforced by the staff of 8 units of alcohol per customer? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Farr. Mr. Day, could you answer that, please?
Can I suggest that Mr. Van Hubble answers that?
Yes, of course. Thank you. Mr. Hubble, would you like to answer that question, please? If you'd like to unmute yourself and answer the question, thank you.
Hi. Yes, there can be anything from, in the summertime, 10 to 12 members of staff working at any one time down at the pier. And primarily, fundamentally, we're only really looking at serving a draft lager and cider from the takeaway side of the kiosk, which obviously is decanted in receptacles measuring a pint. And obviously the staff will be trained of how much alcohol they're allowed to sell to each customer.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Farr, did you want Mr. Van Hubble to expand on how he would be dealt with anybody that maybe seemed to be intoxicated? Was that the question you were looking to have answered?
Yes, please.
Thank you. Mr. Hubble, how would you deal with that? If somebody were to look as if they were becoming intoxicated, what training would your staff be given, and how would it be found out? Thank you.
That's always been one of the licensing objectives, not to serve anybody who appears to be intoxicated. We've always practiced that successfully, and we'll continue to do so, and is given in staff training. Once staff have been trained, documentation is signed to say that they've been given that information. Challenge 25, not to serve drunk people. It's standard practice for us and has been for many years.
Thank you, Mr. Hubble. Do you have any further questions, Councillor Farr?
No, that's it for now. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Burton, do you have any questions for Mr. Hubble or Mr. Lacey?
Thank you, Chair. No questions at the moment. Thank you.
Mr. Lacey, I have a question. You stated that there had been no complaints or incidents believe there have been complaints and some incidents. So what information or evidence are you using with regard to that statement? And are you speaking within the licensable hours of this application? Thank you.
Two separate things there. In terms of the other operation at Chainside, as far as I'm aware, there's never been a problem there.
But with respect, we're looking at this site. So if we could speak about this site, thank you.
Right. As far as this site is concerned, as part of the informal consultations that I had before the application was submitted, contacted the police in particular and asked whether there were any issues that were associated with the Reefside kiosks. I entirely accept that there have been problems around Boscombe Pier, and particularly this summer, as I understand it. I don't dispute anything that the residents and the councillors have said. And I saw the report, for example, in the Echo yesterday with pictures of groups of youngsters with a bonfire and some sort of sound amplification equipment there at 9, 10, 11 o'clock at night into the early hours of the morning, and the reports being made of antisocial behaviour. That's in the vicinity of these premises. However, that cannot be associated with the premises because they're shut at that time of the night. They're never open beyond 8 p.m. And realistically, they shut earlier than that. So in terms of any issues directly associated with the Reefside kiosk, having consulted with the relevant responsible authorities, I've not been made aware of any problems.
Thank you, Mr. Day. It's very helpful indeed. Are there do any officers have any questions on points of fact for Mr. Day? You do, if you'd like to put your hand up. Mr. Oliver, Noel, would you like to ask your question? Unmute yourself.
Can I just check you can hear me properly?
We can hear you now. Thank you, Noel. Yes.
Thank you. Point of clarity is why there's a need to license both units 1 and 2. I understand the logic with regard to unit 2 as it's a food takeaway offer, but unit 1 is currently a beach goods shop. I wouldn't understand why you'd need a premise license on that.
Thank you. Mr. Day?
The original instruction that I had was that one of the units would be used to look after the external area that is pretty well directly in front of it, and the other unit would be used for, in effect, the office sales. There has been something of a movement with regard to look to Mr. Hubble to confirm and clarify it, but I think that we could certainly cope with restricting the sales of alcohol from the second kiosk, which is the one on the right as you look at the pier.
Clarity, you're saying that you would restrict the sale of alcohol at kiosk 2 and sell from kiosk 1 only, or the other way around?
Can I just get Mr. Hubble to confirm, because I don't want to get that wrong. Kiosk 2 is the one.
Suggestion. Yes, Mr. Hubble, would you like to confirm that, please? Thank you.
Hi. Yes. What Noel Oliver said, I completely and utterly agree with. Our intention is to only serve from the takeaway kiosk, which I believe is kiosk 2.
So would you be asking for an amendment to your application to reflect that?
Yes, please.
Okay, so if we could note that, please. Thank you. Are there any other questions for either Mr. Day or Mr. Hubble from any officers on points of fact? No? Okay, thank you. Yeah, sorry?
Can I just...
Mr.
Can I just
yes, Mr. Lacey.
Can I just assist with that? If you look at Appendix 2, that is the layout plan of the premises. And currently, kiosk 1, which is the one on the left, is marked shop and off sales. We can amend that to simply read shop by crossing out the word and off sales. And then kiosk 2, which should be staff only and service point, and that would be the service point for on and off sales.
Okay, thank you for that. We'll ask our clerk to make those notes so that we have that for further reference. Thank you very much. So if there are no other questions then for Mr. Lacey or Mr. Hubble, we will now go on and we will hear from the responsible authorities, which is in this case other persons. And I would like to ask first if our ward councillors would like to speak. So I will ask the ward councillor for the actual ward, Councillor Filer, if you would like to speak first.
Thank you, Chairman. I think actually that Jane Kelly is the ward councillor where that kiosk is situated.
Thank you for Councillor Filer. Thank you very much. In that case, then I will ask Councillor Kelly to speak first, and then I'll ask you afterwards. Thank you, Councillor Filer. That's kind of you. Councillor Kelly, would you like to make your application or speak now, please? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Thank you for allowing me to speak. And also thank you to Mr. Day and Mr. Hubble for their changes offered to the application to mitigate the problems, which are very welcome, of course. I would like to just say that before I start my actual representation, that Mr. Day was talking about the problems in the, oh, sorry, Madam Chair, you mentioned the problems in the past, and Mr. Day pointed then to the raves that have happened during the summer. I think possibly, Madam Chair, you were talking about things that have happened over several years, nothing to do with summertime raves, but more to do with street drinkers taking up residence around the kiosks at the front of the pier, which was a problem, particularly in one year. And I know Mr. Hubble, you know, you and your staff worked very hard to try and stop them being there. They caused a lot of problems. And so with that in mind, and they were drinkers, they were people who were sitting around drinking, that might well have an effect from the alcohol sales from the kiosks. But anyway, I just wanted to clarify that I think that's what Madam Chair was talking about. So I am here this morning as the Boscombe West Ward Councillor, and also I'm representing 7 particular named residents who all live around that area, who have all written to me with their concerns about this application and the potential for the sale of alcohol there. So I'm wanting to strongly object to the granting of this premises licence, please. Whilst appreciating that the leaseholders are experienced and do run the Chineside Cafe, as mentioned by Mr. Day, I would put forward that the 2 premises are very different, both in the facilities provided and in their surroundings. Chineside is right on the seafront with integral seating arrangements, both inside and out, as well as toilet facilities, can be reached via a road down through Durley Chine, and is relatively far from a residential area. None of those things can be said for the situation at Boscombe Pier. This area is very densely populated, with residents of blocks of flats living in close proximity to the kiosks. The frontage of the pier and beach is used extensively and all year round by residents as well as visitors, many of whom are families with children. As I mentioned in my original objection letter, I feel that there are reasons under 3 of the licensing objectives that mean that this application should be refused. The protection of children from harm is the most important of these, and there is a very great danger that people queuing for alcohol amongst children wanting to purchase an ice cream or a bowl of chips. An ugly situation could very easily develop if the prospective purchaser was clearly under the influence of alcohol already and was refused service. Could the staff manage this effectively whilst attending to the rest of their customers? How will they deal with an intoxicated customer, which they don't want and shouldn't serve? I also worry about proxy sales in this location. It will be very difficult for staff of the kiosk to recognise that someone purchasing alcohol is actually purchasing it for an underage person, as the young person could be easily merging with crowd in the pier frontage or sitting on the pumping station steps, as many people do. How will the management see that that is happening? A Challenge 25 policy is all very well, and we welcome that, of course. But in a busy situation during the summer, it can be a difficult decision as to whether to serve a young person who might or might not be old enough to be purchasing alcohol. The lack of toilets is an issue. The alternative licensed premises in the immediate area, the Neptune pub and the Urban Reef, have their own facilities. The public toilets in the area are very busy in the summer, often with queues, and are not open late enough to cater for the early evening clients of this proposed alcohol outlet. Mr. Day states that the lack of toilets has not been a problem thus far. The kiosks have not been serving alcohol thus far, so I fail to see how this is relevant. The fact that the kiosk operators have offered mitigation in terms of using non-glass drinking vessels, and now they are talking about biodegradable vessels and sealed containers for off sales and other measures, are very much welcomed. But putting bins in the place does not mean that some people will walk even a few paces to use them. We saw that during the summer months, didn't we? With the amount of litter left on the beach and prom. I do not accept that, as Mr. Day suggests, that the main purpose of the application is to allow customers to sit outside, having an extra choice of drink. The seating is very limited in that area and in the busy times generally full. I do not think that this business can justify trying to increase their customers using the seating area when many people are not able to find a seat with the current arrangements, let alone if they were able to purchase a pint of beer, which would necessitate a longer period sat at the tables. And it would change the feel of the area considerably. This is very different to a cup of tea or coffee being drunk. The behaviour that will very possibly emanate from this proposal can absolutely be labelled as public nuisance, as can the potential for antisocial behaviour being more apparent. This last potential could also increase the incidence of crime and disorder in the area and lead to an increased need for police and security presence. I've received several very passionate emails from local residents asking me to speak on their behalf against this proposed licence application. I understand their concerns and I agree with them wholeheartedly. I firmly believe that there is already ample opportunity to purchase alcohol in the vicinity for on-premises sales and also in nearby Boscombe Town Centre for off sales, which incidentally has been a cumulative impact area for many years. I do not believe that there is any requirement for further alcohol sales by the pier, as the addition will not bring more visitors to the area, nor will it enhance the experience for those visitors or for the residents of the surrounding roads. For these reasons, I ask you to refuse this licence, Mr. Chairman. Madam Chairman, you're muted.
I keep muting myself. I should leave myself on. What I'm going to do is I'm going to hear from Councillor Filer next, and then I'm going to ask Mr. Oliver to speak. And then I will ask the subcommittee members if they have any questions, because I think you're going to be very much on the same lines. And it may be that we have some questions which are duplicated. So Councillor Filer, would you like to put your presentation? And thank you very much, Councillor Kelly. We will come back to you. Councillor Filer, would you like to put your presentation next, please? Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. It's not going to be nearly as long or well-researched presentation as we've had from Councillor Kelly, especially as one or two of the things she said, well, I was going to say, and I shall adapt them. Just for the record, my ward, Eastcliff Ward, starts at those gates that you can see immediately adjacent to the kiosk and runs all the way along the seafront as far as the cliff, the redundant cliff lift. So anybody in my ward who wants to access the seafront or anyone along there, they go into my ward. So I am very adjacent. Just a couple of points that I would like to make, please. The first one is that I haven't done any serious research, but as far as I can recall, and as far as anecdotally anybody I've asked has said, this will be a precedent if it were to be taken, that there is it's not a bar, it's not got a restaurant, it hasn't got a toilets, it's a premises basically where people can go and buy their drink or sit down if there is a chair available. But I'm very concerned about the impact it's going to have on people at the pier, on families at the pier. On several occasions this summer, the staff of the seafront had to suddenly close Boscombe Pier because of antisocial behaviour that was happening there. I'm sure that Mr. Hubble will be able to say, I don't know what happened to the kiosks, but certainly the pier was closed and there was a lot of hoo-ha amongst people who weren't able to access. This was during the time when we had the so-called invasion, which for people like me who've lived in Boscombe all our lives wasn't an invasion, but it was a lot of people coming to the beach, which is what. Reefside is at the pier. And if you've got if things like this happen, and I suspect that this is going to be the way things are, people enjoy coming to Bournemouth and have discovered us, those people who weren't able to go abroad this summer. I think it's going to be a lot to ask for Mr. Hubble's staff, as Councillor Kelly said, to cope with anybody who's even mildly intoxicated, plus families, plus people who've been kicked off the pier, as they were on several occasions. We've seen staff management being really difficult. We've seen during COVID how it's been for bus drivers, where masks have been mandatory and people have just refused to do it. And I fear for the ability of staff behind a kiosk to be able to deal with intoxicated people, people buying drinks for others who are underage, and managing the crowds that on a nice day will be around the pier. Of course, we can't prove that there'll be antisocial behaviour. The only way to prove that would be to have the bar open and then to see. I mean, that's obvious. The fact that there hasn't been any up to now doesn't mean there won't be any in the future, and none of us can predict. So basically, it's the staff's ability to manage. The CCTV is great. I'd like to ask a question of somebody who is going to monitor that CCTV. It's fine if you're going to use it afterwards to prove that someone behaved badly, but if it's going to be monitored externally by the police or anybody else, it's a different matter. And I think that's all at this stage that I have to say. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much, Councillor Fire. As I said, we'll come back and we'll raise some questions, and also I'm sure that there will be some answers wanted to be given by Mr. Day and Mr. Hubble to your questions directly. Thank you very much for that. Noel, would you like to make your presentation now, please? Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes. Speaking to object on behalf of Seafront Services, the department within BCP Council. My thanks to Councillor Kelly and Councillor Filer. They've relayed my fears very precisely. I would just like to add that whilst appreciative that Reefside have imposed conditions on themselves effectively with their revised terms, I still don't find assurance that this premise will not become an alcohol-led premise. And I believe that to be detrimental to the area in terms of prevention of crime and disorder and public nuisance. The demarcation of their external seating, of which there is none, presents a problem for me. The public would not be aware of where the premise ends and the public realm begins. This creates confusion, and I believe that there'll be significant spillouts from the licensed area onto the surrounding street furniture, and indeed the highway, which is literally 10 metres away from the point of service. So at the risk of repeating myself, I think that is where I am at the moment.
Thank you very much, Mr. Oliver. Linda, you'd like to say something? Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I raised my hand a little while ago. It was really after Councillor Kelly's representations. I was just going to remind committee members, as they heard the rest of the objections, that need is not something that you can consider.
Would you like to clarify that for the subcommittee's members, please? Need regarding the what?
Well, there was reference to being able to already purchase the alcohol at other venues or within Boscombe for takeaway, and it just need is not covered. It's not something that can be considered as part of licensing per se. It's irrelevant actually how many premises there already may be that you can purchase such alcohol.
Yes, thank you. We understand that, but thank you for that clarification on that point. Are subcommittee members happy with that clarification? Yes, Councillor Burton, as far. Right, thank you. Yes. Okay, so that was quite a lengthy presentation from and very informative from all three parties. Are there any questions for Councillor Kelly from the subcommittee members? None? No? Right, okay. And for Councillor Filer? No. And for Mr. Oliver? No? Okay, thank you. So now I'd like to ask if there are any questions of the other parties, Mr. Day or Mr. Hubble, or the opportunity for you to answer some of the questions that were raised by the two councillors and Mr. Oliver. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I see Councillor Farr has his hand up.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Day. Councillor Farr, you've indicated. Would you like to speak? You're muted, Councillor. I know, I keep forgetting.
Yeah, if it's the appropriate opportunity to speak now, I'd like to ask how staff will manage spillover to from the designated seating area to the area opposite. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Farr. Councillor Day, if you'd like to answer the questions that have been put by the ward councillors, subcommittee member, and Mr. Oliver, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Right, there are a number of issues that have arisen here, and the question is how much, if any, weight you need to attach to the various aspects. Protecting children from harm, as I understand it, the concern is that people who are already intoxicated may try and get a drink at the same time as a young person is trying to buy an ice cream or something like that, and that may result in a confrontation. In a sense, there's no answer to that, but as you've heard from Mr. Hubble already, at the normal summer operating levels, you're talking about having 10 or 12 staff, and part of those staff will obviously not be behind kiosk time. They will be out clearing tables, serving people at tables as they are at the moment, but instead of just clearing away cups of tea, coffee, soft drink cans, sandwiches, snacks, chips, whatever it is, ice cream, they would also be clearing away biodegradable receptacles. So the entire area is constantly monitored when the kiosks are open, and so on and so forth. And we simply don't anticipate that there is a problem, provided the staff are adequately and properly trained. Part and parcel of the training, it includes proxy sales, in the same way as off licenses need to be aware of it, and simply keep an eye open for what's going on. Sometimes it's not difficult to spot if there is a group of young people, some of whom may be over 18, some of whom are not over 18. They get challenged, staff naturally keep an eye on them, etc. In terms of spillover, part and parcel of this application is to allow for consumption either within the designated area that is shown on Appendix 2 or without that area or outside that area. The reality is at the moment that people who want to drink on the beach have a habit of loading up before they arrive at some cheap supermarket or whatever, and bringing it with them and drinking it like. You've already heard reference to street drinkers who were very obviously not getting their alcohol from Reefside because it wasn't licensed to do there. And the hard work of Mr. Hubble and his colleagues, fellow directors and staff went to try and address that problem. This is not somewhere that is likely to be attractive to street drinkers. Street drinkers tend to like very cheap, very high strength alcohol. They go for the 6% plus large bottles of cider and so on and so forth. The conditions that we have proposed, particularly now that they are amended, they're not going to be able to go there and buy a 2-litre bottle of cider that is 7-8% strong. A, because it is restricted to 5.5%, and B, because it's not going to be in a bottle or anything like that, and C, as I've already indicated, and I wouldn't want you to impose a minimum price condition or whatever, because those things go out of date in 2 minutes flat, but you are going to be paying £5 a pint there if you choose to drink there. Street drinkers do not pay £5 for a pint of ordinary beer, lager, cider or whatever. They're not going to be able to go and buy a quarter bottle of cheap vodka or anything like that. That is not going to be an issue. It is all about staff training and the like. There is already a condition requiring staff training on Challenge 25, the general conditions attaching to the license and licensing law, etc. To suggest that this would be a precedent is, with respect, not right, for 2 reasons. Firstly, every case has to be judged on its own merits, as I'm sure you're aware. Secondly, it isn't setting a precedent. You may, and again, bearing in mind that every premises, every application is different. You take Fisherman's Walk, for example, the kiosk there has been long established, and you are able to buy alcohol to consume within its fairly limited area. I would guess, knowing those premises, the amount of seating that's actually within the curtilage there is probably about the same as here, I would guess. Don't hold me to that one. It's been quite a while since I've been to Fisherman's Walk. But again, you can buy there and take away, and they're not restricted to biodegradables or anything of that nature. You will also no doubt recall, not so very long ago, you considered an application for bistro, which, yes, again, somewhat different.
Sorry, Mr. Day, could we just keep it to the relevant application, because you said yourself that we need to look at each application on its merits and specific application, yet we're getting some examples as to where else we should be looking. So if we could just keep it to the application in case, thank you.
Yes, then as far as the CCTV is concerned, it is not intended that this private CCTV system externally by the police or anybody else. The council has its own CCTV system, which is monitored by council's own staff and covers part of this area. The system would simply record, given the nature of these premises, they're open. Anybody working in either the external area or in one of the kiosks, particularly kiosk 2, is able to see it. And you wouldn't need to have somebody sit there watching CCTV monitors in case something goes wrong. It is there partly as a deterrent against antisocial behaviour. You are on camera, and it is a requirement that if you have a CCTV system, you have signs up telling people that they are being recorded, that there is CCTV, and that it would then be made available for the relevant responsible authorities, including licensing officers, including environmental health officers, but more importantly, including the police, to review if anything were to happen, even if it weren't actually related to the sale of alcohol. You know, if there was a problem on the pier or anything like that, then provided the data protection regulations are complied with and so on and so forth, and they apply to all of us else, then they can go and review the CCTV and to look at that. And demarcation. Well, I've got to be honest and say that I don't entirely understand what the issue is with regard to that. To an extent, there is an amount of demarcation, because if you look in the photographs, there's the gates that Councillor Pyler referred to on one side, and the boundary is actually, you can see it goes up to the pavement. One wouldn't want to start putting barriers up or anything like that. They're not there at the moment, they've never been there, and it doesn't create an issue with people who are eating and drinking, albeit not alcohol at the moment, outside, and it wouldn't in the future. I think Mr. Hubble can probably deal with anything else that might have arisen or add to that, and with your leave, Chair, I'll pass to him for a moment.
Thank you, Mr. Dell. I could see that Mr. Hubble was indicating to speak. Mr. Hubble, put your microphone on, and if you'd like to speak, thank you.
I think one of the plus points with Boscombe Pier is that if there are any potential problems down there, it is very, very easily accessible by all the local authorities, unlike other areas of the beach. In my experience, having been down at the pier since 2008, I've found, generally speaking, the area to become a lot more cosmopolitan on the seafront, attracting a lot more families, a lot more locals, and a lot more tourists than it did in previous years. I found this due to the money that's been spent on the Overstrand Urban Reef, the Harvester having a makeover, and the money invested by us into the pier. And generally, I think it's become a more popular end of the beach due to the lack of flashing lights and arcades and other facilities that attract more issues with other people. Our intention really is with the serving of beer and cider is it's not something that we initially did when we reopened in 2011 after investment, because we didn't feel it was necessary or needed. It's with the last 9 years of operating the kiosks that we submit this application due to a need and a want of people for us to be able to supply this with their meals.
Thank you, Mr. Hubble. Councillor Burton and Councillor Farr, do you have any questions for anyone else, Mr. Oliver or the ward councillors? Any further questions?
I'd like to
thank you, Councillor Burton. Yes, please go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. The protection of children from harm aspects. My concerns is I feel there needs some reassurance about the possibility of alcohol being purchased at the kiosk and then taken down onto the beach by people and allowing children to drink it. What facilities will be available to prevent that from happening?
Thank you, Councillor Burton. That's an extremely good question. With regard to proxy sales, Mr. Hubbard, I think you could answer that. Thank you. Mr. Hubbard, thank you.
Hi, sorry. Yeah, when serving to customers, I find that obviously the Challenge 25 really helps due to the fact that people over 25 generally are not chancers. They're not trying to supply alcohol to younger people, 15, 16, 17 years of age, which I feel is one of the main objectives of the Challenge 25 is to not to create this. At the pier, as Mr. Day did state, it's very visible from the pier a long way in front and at the sides. We also generally have 2 staff outside, generally looking after all the things outside the shop and watching what's going on. But quite often we have to adapt the trade to the trends and to the weather to do so. As regards of ensuring that no one underage gets alcohol, I do firmly believe that the Challenge 25 really does assist to that.
Thank you, Mr. Hubble. I hope that answers your question. Councillor Burton, did you have a further question?
Yeah, no, thank you very much. That answers. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Burton. I have a question for Mr. Mr. Oliver. You've outlined your concerns in your application, your address to us, and you do talk about the concern about the permanent demarcation, which will detail where the premises ends and the public area begins. We have touched on this. Could you give us your concerns with regard to how that could be better policed when, as Mr. Day has clearly told us, people will collect their tray of drinks and once the challenge 25 has been satisfied, they will be taking them onto the beach. I don't think there's a possibility that the consumption of alcohol can stay within that demarcation. Was that something that you were hoping would happen, or have I misunderstood your statement? Mr. Oliver, just some clarification on that. Thank you.
To be honest, I'd rather there was no external seating at all, and there was no demarcation or external seating. My fear is that obviously the spill out will happen irrespective of staffing, and quite naturally opposite the unit 2 there is a pumping station, which is the stonework tiered area that you can see in the photo, and that quite naturally is where people congregate. So I can see the spill out, taking place into those sorts of areas, which is a concern for me. Could I add a point of clarification? Mr. Day inferred that the Fisherman's Walk kiosk had a premise license. We operate that kiosk and it doesn't have a premise license, and we wouldn't apply for one for the reasons that we're representing ourselves here today.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for that point of clarification, but there's no opportunity for cross-questioning across the party, so we'll take that one as advisement. Thank you very much, Mr. Oliver. The other point is with the area effective antisocial behaviour. You're on the beach, you're very professional, you've been looking after the beach for a considerable amount of time, you know what you're doing. What evidence have you got? What is your experience with regard to antisocial behaviour that may be further impacted by the sale of alcohol within those licensing hours that are applied for?
Yeah, a number of incidents throughout this summer in relation to alcohol, not just at Boscombe, but along the whole seafront. Our rangers are patrolling and have been abused, and there are a couple of cases of minor assaults in relation to drunken disorderly. But I'm not saying that's specific to Boscombe. It's a problem all the way along the seafront. So to add another facility just creates that extra opportunity.
So what you're saying, you feel there's the possibility of further impact because of the potential of the extra license?
Yes, indeed.
Right,
yes, indeed.
Thank you. Right, thank you. Councillors Kelly and Councillor Finer, you told that you were speaking on behalf of quite a few residents. There was a strength of feeling of those residents. Did they outline specific concerns to you? You've done a very broad-based application. But what were the most specific concerns coming from all those people that have asked you to come today to speak on their behalf? Shall we ask Councillor Kelly first?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, I can be specific. One of the residents who lives in a position that means that she can overlook the down towards the pier area. She tells me that during the summer, people are purchasing drinks from possibly the Neptune, Boscombe, I don't know. And they are sitting on the pumping station all day drinking. And so further availability of alcohol from 10 o'clock in the morning will exacerbate this situation. There has been behaviour due to people being drunk. around that area from every summer, really. And it's a shame because many families use that area. There's the area for sports around the boulders, children to climb on. Water sports. There are a lot of we really want to try and attract families to that area. And I don't think that this will help us in any way, shape or form. The other thing that the residents have pointed out to me is that staffing of the kiosks. I've never seen 10 or 12, nor have they at any one time. There may well be many staff overall, but I'm sure they work in shifts. And the presence of queues constantly during the weather and sometimes outside of those central summertime. The queues in both kiosks, particularly the takeaway one, are often very long, and so that shows that the staff levels maybe are not quite high enough. In any event, and certainly not high enough to cope with this new proposal.
Thank you very much, Councillor. Thanks for your useful background. Councillor Filer. If you switch your microphone, thank you, Councillor Filer.
I had to find it first, Chairman. Chairman, I've been contacted by many of the flats, which were at the top, not on the bottom side, at the top of the cliff. You've got steps up, tennis tables, and then there's top of the cliff, overlook this area, use this area, and they're all concerned about the potential behaviour. Although I believe said in his initial speech that the possibility of antisocial behaviour should not be considered, and I accept that. He actually just said they don't anticipate problems, and I'd have thought that's exactly opposite. Anticipating things, either good or bad, is what it's all about. You don't anticipate problems, and my residents do anticipate problems. I would have thought that's probably very well. I'm also concerned about this staff. I know that Mr. Hubble runs a lovely place many times. So that's not in doubt. But the staff are young. And in the season, they're like every other staff in every other restaurant. A lot of youngsters who are at university and taking a little job. Not quite standing up to really bad behaviour. And that is a concern by everybody. We've seen it everywhere. But I mean. Whether or not there will be, a question of they don't anticipate. My residents do anticipate, and I believe that Mr. Oliver's staff anticipate as well. He also employs quite a lot of staff who wouldn't be capable of necessarily coping with the behaviour, and that's all I'd like to say. Thank you very much.
Councillor Fine, speak. If you can your microphone on.
No, it's okay now.
Are you sure?
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Okay, so no further questions from members of subcommittee. Any questions from any of our citizens? Did you have any questions you'd like to raise with regard to fact? No? You're content, thank you. So now all parties will be given the opportunity to sum up, and I will go in reverse order. So we will firstly start with Mr. Oliver and our ward councillors. So ladies first, so back to you, Councillor Kelly. Like a brief summary of what you've said for our information. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Well, to sum up, I think we have heard that there is considerable opposition to the idea of this premises licence being granted in the local area. And I would also reiterate that I don't think that it will enhance the visitor experience in one little bit. And we are very much dependent on our tourist trade. Mr. Hubble is, as well as everyone else along here, and people who live in this area, including the young people who work for him. So I don't think it's going to enhance that experience and bring any more visitors. So I really don't think we need to. It would be advisable to grant this, and I don't think actually that the the problem of protecting children from harm has been adequately addressed by Mr. Day and Mr. Hubble, and that worries me a lot. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Kelly. And Councillor Filer?
Thank you, Chairman. I don't think I've got any more to add. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Oliver?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. I'm kind of backing up what Councillor Filer says. I don't think this application brings anything different to the area. In fact, creates its own problems. And ultimately, this is the welcome to Boscombe Pier, and be surrounded by street drinkers, I don't think is appropriate for the area.
Thank you very much, Mr. Oliver. Thank you for that. So now I'd like to ask Mr. Hubble and Mr. Day if you would like to sum up, please, in any order you prefer. I don't know who'd like to go first. If you'd like to, you'd like to go first, Mr. Day?
Yeah, I'll go first.
Okay, Mr. Day, and then Mr. Hubble afterwards. Thank you very much.
I'm sorry that I used the word anticipate. What I ought to have said was we don't expect there to be a problem, because the issues that may or may not arise have already been anticipated and dealt with. For example, issues with regard to bottles, cans and so on and so forth that were of great concern. Yes, we have appreciated that, and now don't expect or anticipate with bottles and cans, because, for example, there won't be. This vision of street drinkers, I think we're maybe talking about rather different things here. When somebody says street drinkers to me, the image that conjures up is usually somebody who is pretty destitute, may well be homeless, unemployed, drowning his or her sorrows with cheap alcohol, and spending all day long under the influence, really not at all with it, and being a blooming nuisance to ordinary citizens trying to go about their business. This isn't catering for street drinkers. The object of the exercise is to cater for people like me a fair amount of the time. If I go down to Boscombe Pier or whatever, yes, I would like to be able to sit there in the sunshine and have a drink. I don't want to go into town and buy a couple of cans from an off-license or anything like that and wander down and drink there. I want to be civilized about it. It would certainly enhance my visitor experience to this little corner of Bournemouth if that facility was afforded to me. But that's my subjective view, and with the greatest respect, it's got really nothing to do with the licensing objectives and so on and so forth. It will bring something a bit different to this little bit of Bournemouth, because obviously at the moment the kiosks aren't licensed. It would be different if they were licensed. It is, as I say, a subjective matter. But as far as the committee is concerned, you have to look at the licensing objectives. You have to think as to whether it is appropriate in order to preserve and to promote the licensing objectives to do as the objectors are asking and to refuse this application, or whether it is appropriate to apply the presumption of grant and to deal with legitimate concerns that are backed by evidence by the imposition of conditions. And we have proposed conditions, and I have at this hearing proposed amended conditions. And if you would like those in writing, then I'm in a position to simply send you all an email with the wording that I read out earlier on, if that is of assistance. It always seems to be the case that with something like this, there are concerns that are expressed by local residents who always fear the worst. There is a mechanism within the Act to deal with that. If it turns out that this suddenly becomes a hub of antisocial activity that is connected to the sale of alcohol, if it suddenly becomes a problem that children under the age of 16 are suddenly managing to get their beer or whatever it is in highly recognizable receptacles, because they're the only ones that are being supplied along the way in biodegradable cups, jars, whatever you want to call them. It'll be blooming obvious where they've got it from, and responsibility for that will come immediately back onto the shoulders of Mr. Hubble, his fellow directors, and his staff, and probably by license if that were to happen. It's not in their interest to allow it. There is a presumption in favour of grant on the basis of the evidence that has been put before you, rather than speculations to the possibility, a word that we've heard several times, possibility this may happen, possibility that may happen. With the greatest respect, a possibility that it may happen is not good enough grounds to refuse an application of this nature. And I invite you to grant it. And as I've said, if you want the specific wording in front of you that I proposed and read out earlier on, I have an email. I think I've captured everybody's email addresses that are at this meeting, and I can send that to you in the flash of an eye.
Thank you, Mr. Day. Thank you for that. Thank you if you've completed your summary. Mr. Hubble, do you have anything to add to that? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. When you consider the application today, I would like to hope that there will be some confidence taken in the fact of I have been a successful licensee for over 20 years in the borough of Hall and Bournemouth, with vast experience on the seafront of 12 or 13 years, especially down at Boscombe Pier. And I would hope that that should hopefully give some confidence in the hopefulness of the application being accepted in some way, shape or form.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hubble. So, no, right then to move on to lastly, but by no means least, Tanya Jardim, if you've got any summary or anything that you'd like to add, thank you, as the first speaker.
Thank you. No, I don't have anything to add in my introduction. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, so with that then, ladies and gentlemen, just to check that everybody is happy that they've had every opportunity. Mr. Day, if you'd like to come back briefly.
Very briefly, would you like me to send you all that wording that I read out earlier?
Well, I'm just going to come on to that. If you just give me a moment, thank you. Just that we've had everybody is happy that they've had every opportunity to speak and raise any questions that they like. We have got an offer of some extra conditions on behalf of Mr. Hubble from Mr. Day. Would members like those extra conditions? I'm sure the clerk would like them if nobody else, sent to us for consideration when we adjourn to deliberate. If anybody is unhappy, can they put a hand up? If everybody's happy, then no hands, then I will ask Mr. Day to send that through. I can't see any hands. So, Mr. Day, that seems clearly that everybody is very happy that you send all those conditions through, which mainly sat around, I believe, I made a note of them, and they sat around we were going to change the word with regard to 5.5 alcohol to just to supply, and all alcoholic drinks were going to be decanted into biodegradable non-plastic, not plastic tins or cans, and 175 millilitre containers to supply to customers. And no spirit will be sold unless in a mixer, and again in the biodegradable containers, and that only 8 units of alcohol, gave us a breakdown, which was roughly 2 pints of beer, 2 medium wines or 2 large gin and tonics. And no bulk sales. I believe that's an overview. If you're content with that, if we can have the detail through the email, then we can take it from there. Have you sent the email, Mr. Day? Thank you.
So I have sent an email and I hope I've got everybody. I've just noticed that there was one tiny mistake in it because I said here wine or cider counts as a unit. That should obviously not read wine, it should read lager. I'm not suggesting that half a pint of wine would be 1 unit of alcohol.
Indeed.
Sorry.
Indeed. Thank you for that. We've had a verification that our clerk, who's the most important person regarding this, has received the email. So we have that information in front of us. Thank you very much. So if everybody is content that they've all had the opportunity to speak, raise questions, we will now move on. And at the end of this meeting, of this licensing subcommittee meeting, so that will be after the next hearing, we will adjourn in private with the legal advisor and our clerk to deliberate. Notification of the subcommittee's decision will be provided within the period of 5 working days, beginning with the day on the last day on which the hearing is held in accordance with the regulations, which is today. And the notification of the decision will include information about the right of appeals as appropriate. And I would like to ask our legal advisor, please, Linda Cole, who has all this information, to explain that right of appeal. Thank you, Linda.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, there will be a is made today. As the Chair has already told you, that will be communicated in writing within 5 working days to the applicant and to those that have made representations. The right of appeal is then to the Dorset Magistrates Court within 21 days of formal notification of today's decision.
Thank you very much for that, Linda. So I will now conclude our meeting, and this meeting of the Reefside kiosk application is now complete. So going on now to item 6, which is exclusion of press and public. I am going to read out notification with regard to this, and it is as follows. In relation to the items of business appearing below, the committee is asked to consider the following resolution: that under section 100A subsection 4 of the Local Government Act 1972, the public be excluded from the meeting for the following items of business on the grounds that they involve the likely disclosure of exempt information as defined in paragraphs 1 and 2 in part 1 of schedule 12A of the Act, and that the public interest in withholding the information outweighs such interest in disclosing the information. So the live streaming will now end. Thank you, Max.